welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Mohammed Shoaib. So today we are going to look at the types of machine learning and the basics of supervised and unsupervised learning. Okay, let's start. So what is machine learning at the first step? So before going to types of machine learning, what is machine learning? Right. So machine learning is a study of algorithms and statistical models to perform a specific task without being explicitly programmed. Okay. So this is the definition of it. Okay. So let me try to explain what exactly it is. Okay. So in machine learning, we're going to, let's say, we're going to create a model that will perform specific task without programming each time. Okay, one example is, let's say you're going to create a model that predicts the sales of a particular model of a car. Okay, let's say we talk about Ford. Okay, so how do you create a model? First of all, you create a model by giving the data first. Okay, you input the data, you tell the model that this is the data of last 10 years, and you tune the data to enable the model to come up with the sales or prediction of upcoming years. Okay, so the example which I'm talking about, you create a model to predict the sales of so and so car model. What happens next is you input the data of, let's say, 10 years or 5 years, and then the model comes up with the prediction of the amount of sales that's going to happen in the next year or next 2 or 3 years. So that's how we basically use the machine learning, right? Um, so let's move on. So in practical, right? So machine learning is a process of training a system or a model to predict what the data is going to be in the future. Okay, so how do you do that? So you do that by entering or inputting the data, the previous historical data, and then you create the you enable the model to create the relationship between those variables which you input, and then the model will is so smart enough that it will come up with the particular prediction for so and so value. Okay, so at this stage it might be a bit confusing, but going forward, when we do the practicals, you will understand these things in more detail. Okay, so I'll anyways try to explain you with a small diagram in the next slide. Okay, so model is nothing but a set of code or instructions. So someone who is a newbie, a new person who is trying to learn machine learning, so model is nothing but a set of code, okay, or the instructions, right? So let's look at this diagram. Okay, I'll try to explain you the what machine learning exactly is. Okay, so what we see here is, we have the data getting inputted first. Okay, so we input the data, and the second box, sorry, yeah, so the second box basically is the machine learning model. Okay, so we call this as the training phase. So the training phase basically is nothing but you tuning the model to come up or predict the exact value of the future state. Okay, so let's say if we try to relate this with the previous example which I was talking about. Let's say the data is the 10 years of car sales. Okay, so you input the data, you train the model, machine learning model, saying that whenever this sort of data comes in, you create a model, or you create do the calculation. Basically you do the calculation and predict the sales for next 1 year or next 2 years or 3 years, whatever. So that training happens in this particular training model phase. Okay, so you input the data, you tune the data to enable the model to come up with a prediction, and then once the model is trained, it will become the final model, right? So this final model is then deployed to use it anytime. Okay, so let's say this model is deployed and you keep using this model n number of times in a day or in a week or whatever. So you need not specifically code each and every time. Okay, so let's say you give the data of 2010 to 2020, and then try to find the sales for 2021. It gives the output, right? So same thing can be done. Let's say 5 years down the line, you give the data from 2020 to 2015 to 25, and then you try to get the prediction for next year. So this is all about it. So basically machine learning model is a model that you tune to calculate the prediction. Okay, calculate and come up with the prediction. Okay, so see what how do you train a model? Okay, so training a model is similar to teaching a person what is what. Okay, so it's as simple as that to understand. Okay, so basically, how do you teach someone what is what? You show them the data. You show them. Let's say you're trying to teach a kid what a banana looks like, it what a what an apple looks like. So you bring an apple, you bring in banana, and tell the kid that okay, see, look, this is called as banana or this is called as apple. Okay, so next time whenever the kid looks at banana, he calls it as banana, right? So it's as simple as that, right? So you train the model with your data. Okay, and then the model it will get trained, and then it will remember the particular training, and then it will use its knowledge to predict the future. Okay, predict the required output basically. Okay, so big question, how do you train or teach the model is the answer is the data is the format or the mode of training the model or teaching the model. Okay, so what is the data basically? Data can be text, it can be image, it can be the Excel sheet wherein you have lots and lots of fields with different variables and everything. So basically data is a fuel for the model, and then you will basically divide the data into training set as well as a test set, and we will see all these details in our practical sessions. But yeah, so data you divide into two parts basically. First part you use it for training, and the second part you use it for testing it. Okay, so basically data can be used to train the model, and model will understand what exactly it needs to be done. Okay, so let's move on to next slide. Yeah, so let's now come into types of machine learning, right? So in a broader view, there are two types of machine learning. Okay, so the first thing is supervised learning, and the second thing is unsupervised learning. Okay, we'll see what exactly this is. So any model in the world can be differentiated and put under one of these, put under one of these categories. Okay, so basically there are two types of machine learning. Okay, so let's see what is supervised learning. Okay, so in this learning, the learning of the model is supervised by a user. Okay, so the user gives the data, you give the data, and you train the model saying that this is the data and this is the sales data, and let's say in fifth month this is the sale, sixth month this is the sale, 10th month this is the sale. Okay, and you input this data in the model and ask the model what is the sale of, let's say, 15th month, which is in future. Okay, so that moment the model will do its calculation based on the data it has with it. Okay, and then predicts the value saying that 15th month sale could be so xyz. Okay, so that's how the supervised learning or the model generation works here. Okay, so basically user creates the model, inputs the data, tunes the model to find the relationship between variables or to identify the variables. Okay, so one big difference between this supervised learning, and the next one, unsupervised learning, is in supervised learning the user enters the data and tells what the data is. Okay, so let's see with a small example here. So let's say this is the model. Okay, we give the input as let's say apples here, and the user says uh, that these are the apples. Okay, then model understands, okay, so whenever it sees this sort of things, okay, this sort of image or this sort of product, then these are called as apples. Okay, so now after the model is created, when you input the data saying what is this, the model says this is an apple, so it predicts it's an apple. Okay, so how the model got to know that this is an apple? So we have entered the input here. Okay, so we have set the model that the person who has created the model has said that this is an apple, so model has predicted that this is an apple. Okay, so this is basically supervised learning, right? So the biggest the biggest advantage of the model is the user is going to tell what exactly it is. Okay, what exactly the product is, or what exactly the data is talking about. Okay, so this is a simple example, but in reality things will be a bit complex. So this is just an example for you to understand what supervised learning is. Okay, So let's see what unsupervised learning is. Okay, so the algorithm or model is left to their own devices to discover the pattern. Okay, so the goal in this model is to identify the underlying pattern or the distribution. The goal is to model the data, the underlying pattern or the distribution in the data in order to learn more about the data. Okay, so in unsupervised learning, we are not going to tell or the user is not going to tell the model what type of data it is and what the relationship between each attribute is. Okay, so one particular point to remember here, there is no correct answer or there is no teacher here. Okay, so you just input the data and model itself will smartly identify or classify the data by identifying the underlying patterns in the data. Okay, so let's see with a small example here. Yeah. So what happens here is, you have raw data. Okay, you have apples, oranges, or mangoes, whatever. So all mixture of everything. So this, let's say this is the data. Okay, so it's a mixture of everything. You don't know what exactly the pattern is between each variable. Okay, so you input this sort of data to the machine learning algorithm, which is unsupervised algorithm. So this model, so once you enter this model will be smart enough to differentiate between each product or each particular data value. Okay, so it will do its calculation and it will come up saying that, okay, this sort of things which are looking are similar. Okay, so these sort of three things are similar and these sort of three things are similar. So it's going to differentiate. So it's not going to say that this is apple, this is mango, but it's gonna differentiate and classify the different variables in the data. Okay, so the general example of this particular model in real time is, let's say, you have let's say user is trying to apply for a credit card. Okay, so the finance department or the banks will do a check, okay, whether your past experience, past you know credit rating or the way you pay the bills and everything is in line or not. So based on that, the model will either say that he's a good credit person or a bad credit person, right? So it's going to differentiate based on your past experience, so past paying history, right? So such sort of clustering thing happens, especially with the unsupervised learning. Okay, so this is a small example here. So basically, just to summarize, you input a lot of data. The algorithm or the model will be smart enough to differentiate, and it will say these 10 records are in one classified as one set, the other 10 records classified as other set, other 5 records are classified as other set. Okay, so this is how the unsupervised learning algorithm works basically. Okay, so that's pretty much about supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So just to give summary, so today we have learned the broader types of machine learning, which is supervised and unsupervised. To summarize, supervised learning, basically user gives the data and tells the details of the data to the model, whereas in unsupervised learning, the model will classify based on its own understanding or its own calculation on the underlying patterns. Okay, so we will anyways deal all of these in detail when we talk about practical sessions. So just hang on and keep watching the videos. Okay, and thanks for your time. And then, as I say, always subscribe to my channel to get the latest videos on any newly uploaded videos. Okay, so just follow this pattern of the videos, uh, which I'll be taking one by one as per the topics discussed in the previous video. Okay, so thank you so much, and see you in the next video.